Tell me about what life is like for the Democratic Party on Capitol Hill. I know they're not there today, but you have a good sense of the anger that they are currently experiencing.
Yeah, there is definitely a sense of frustration among Democrats on Capitol Hill about what the path forward should look like. And they're probably getting an earful this week from their constituents, as many of these Democratic lawmakers have town halls planned throughout the week where they're going to hear firsthand how their constituents feel about this decision that was made to basically cave to Donald Trump's demands and vote for a continuing resolution that most of them hated in order to prevent the government from being shut down. Now, there's obviously a lot of public attack on Chuck Schumer, a lot of rank and file Democrats who believe that he should have held his ground, continued to fight the good fight, even if it meant the government shut down. But there is also an undercurrent among many of these Democrats that aren't talking out loud that they believe that Schumer made the prudent choice, the opportunity to live and fight another day, because the consequences of a shutdown would have been far worse than just standing up to Donald Trump and the fallout that's going to be as a result of that. In many ways, Chuck Schumer is serving as a heat shield for many of these Senate Democrats in particular that wanted the opportunity to vote no, but were very nervous about the prospect of what a shutdown could look like and what Donald Trump would do if given the opportunity to administer the government under shutdown parameters. There's no easy path forward for Democrats right now. And while they're in search of a leader, they're also searching for an identity. The Democratic brand right now is certainly not very strong. But there's also signs that Donald Trump and his political standing are weakened as well. So the question is, how do Democrats fill that void? How do they become the alternative when it comes to how Americans feel about the way the government is being administered? Because right now there is plenty of evidence that the average voter doesn't trust either side when it comes to the way the government should look going forward, Katie.
Hey, listen, Cornell, you could argue this. The Democratic Party doesn't have anywhere else to go but up at this point. Republicans still have more of a slope to travel down in terms of their poll numbers. How do you read what came out over the weekend? I mean, this number from NBC News, 27%. I mean, all I could say was wow when I heard about this.
Yeah, well, okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into the numbers, because I take it that's why you have me here. So, and really, this is, in many ways, this is a carryover for what we just saw in the 2024 presidential election, where you had, anywhere from 4 to 5 million folks who voted Democrat in 2020 just not turn up and vote in this previous election. Look, if you look at where independent voters are, there's not 2 points difference on overall where independent voters in this NBC poll is on negative feelings of Democrats or Republicans. Republicans, however, in this poll are about 20 points more favorable towards their Republican brand than our Democrats. And you look at younger voters, which are also always a key base group of voters for Democrats. Katie, when I was working for Obama from 2008 to 2012, through 2012, I never saw the Democratic Party, and certainly Obama's brand, underwater by more than 28 points, which is where it is right now among young voters, and even among African-American voters. African-American voters don't have a majority positive view of the Democratic Party right now. So a lot of this fight you're seeing right now taking place, or sort of the anger that you see from grassroots voters and grassroots Democrats, it is them pulling back from the Democratic Party. It's them wanting to see and feel more from the Democratic Party. And I think you saw it in the last election, where you had millions of Democrats sit this one out, and now you have such grassroots anger about wanting to see more from the Democrats, wanting to see Democrats fight and really stand for something.
Yeah, and it reminds a lot of folks of what the Republican Party experienced back when Obama got elected, and the birth of the Tea Party. All of the anger amid the Republican Party among the voters about what Republicans did, how they allowed somebody like President Obama to get elected, how they weren't offering Republicans or the country a better option. And born out of that was, Eric Cantor losing his seat in 2010. David, do you see parallels here? Do you see the Democratic Party being in the same position potentially going forward?
Yeah, I am seeing parallels, and I'm seeing parallels to some of the debates after George W. Bush won re-election in 2004, where there was kind of this argument that what the left needs to do is imitate what has worked on the right. In other words, do you remember Air America? They were going to create the alternative left-wing version of talk radio. Reminds me very much of like the calls you hear, where's the left-wing Joe Rogan? But that is the wrong course. I was present at the creation of the Tea Party, and sort of yielding to this impulse that says fight, 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 fight all the time creates a party that is not really ready to govern, but is ready to only fight on a permanent basis. I think the better model is to actually look at what worked in 2006 and 2008 for Democrats. They very intentionally recruited better candidates that did well in some red-leaning parts of America in 2008. They nominated a candidate who would say there is no red America, there is no blue America, there's the United States of America, and Barack Obama. They won and defeated sort of this first iteration of Republicans saying we're going to have a permanent generational majority by doubling down on really ultimately what was the culture of the Democratic Party at that time and the ideology of the Democratic Party, not by just imitating what had worked for Republicans, which is a very different community with a very different culture.
Yeah, that's interesting, Cornel, because there's some Gallup polling out there that is suggesting the Democrats should not be the parallel to the Tea Party. They shouldn't go more extreme. They shouldn't make a hard tack to the left. They need to move more to the center. Gallup polling showing that voters want more moderate Democratic candidates, not more progressive Democratic candidates. What do you make of that? Well,
Katie, what is a progressive, right? I dare you to tell me what a progressive is. Progressives, universal health care? Is progressives a minimum wage? Is being progressive, fighting to keep Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid from the chopping block? I think too often we get these ideological labels on things, and most American people, quite frankly, don't think that way and don't really understand it. If you look at part of the reason why Trump is in trouble right now is that the things they're trying to do are really unpopular, right? There is no mandate for any of the things that they're really trying to do. There's no mandate for most of the things they're trying to do from a policy standpoint. But if you look, and I'm glad David brought this up. Look, I worked for Howard Dean in 2005 when we came in there. And you know what we started doing? We started getting away from Washington and getting back to our grassroots. We started investing in our state parties. We started investing in our communities. And these people in Washington think we can move around a couple of words on a messaging board and solve this problem. They're completely missing it. We've got to get back to a real 50-state strategy where we invest in our communities and we're communicating with our voters 24/7 every day of the week, just like Republicans are doing right now in the social media space.
Max, heavy sigh, Max Rose is what I'll call you. Tell me what you think. Why did you have such a reaction to that number when I read it?
Those approval ratings certainly make me want to sigh now and drink later. But there is a silver lining to what's happened over the course of the last 6 months or so. In 2016, when Donald Trump first won presidential race, Democrats did not win one statewide race in a state that Donald Trump also won. In 2024, we actually won 4. Okay, we won Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, Ruben Gallego in Arizona, Tammy Baldwin, and Jackie Rosen. So 4 really hard races where they won Trump voters. So it's important right now for the party to reinvest in recruitment, reinvest in resourcing those early campaigns, because they're the ones that can culturally communicate. And that's what these elections are about.
What do those 4 lawmakers, those 4 senators have in common?
Sure. First of all, I think it's a lifetime of service. Look at how Alyssa Slotkin and Ruben Gallego both present their service background, whether it is as a Marine or a CIA operative, to show people that they're putting the country first, because it's actually true, and to earn their trust very quickly. The problem with the party right now is that everyone thinks that the Democrats are fringe actors that can't culturally align with them. So they don't feel proud to vote for them. And I think what distinguishes those 4 candidates is people feel proud of them and they trust them.
How do you break away from the narrative that the right has painted about Democrats, and frankly, some Democrats have painted about themselves? And when you talk about some of the fringe stuff, what are you talking about when you're saying, fringe positions?
Sure. So here's what you don't do. I think it's two things. One, you don't need to throw groups under the bus, and you don't need to be MAGA light, right? Elissa Slotkin and Ruben Gallego didn't just vote for this CR. In fact, they're pounding Republicans for eliminating things like the PACT Act, which is one of the cornerstones of veteran care. But at the same time, what you're not constantly trying to do is present yourself with beliefs that it's very clear that the majority of Americans are opposed to. If we cannot earn people's trust and win elections, then we're not in a place to actually help people. So Elissa Slotkin, each and every day she's talking about her bio, and she's telling people she served with Democrats and Republicans, and when she was in Iraq for 3 deployments, never once did she ask someone their political beliefs. So she's always putting the country first. And that's a really, really valuable, not only act of service, but it's also valuable in politics.
What do you make of the talk around AOC primarying Chuck Schumer, potentially? I mean, there's not saying that she's going to do it, but people are talking about her doing it. They're also talking about her as the next voice of the party, that she's the fighter the party needs. Is she the fighter the party needs? She's certainly...
What's been interesting about her, and I came into office the same year she did, I think that she's consistently showing at least some of a desire to practice addition rather than subtraction. So she's certainly been a valuable voice, but she is not the only voice. What is most essential here is that in these hard-to-win swing districts, we find the best candidates with service-driven backgrounds who can inspire people and earn their trust. And then, God forbid, we not turn into a different party after we win election, after we win the majority, which is unfortunately what has happened in the past. We said we were one thing, and then we turn around and we turn into a different party, and that should stop.